Why is right now the time for Ron DeSantis to run for president?
Because everyone knows if I'm the nominee, I will beat Biden and I will serve 2 terms and I will be able to destroy leftism in this country and leave woke ideology on the dustbin of history.
Okay. What does Yale University take anybody these days?
Yeah.
He went to Yale. He will
Harvard.
destroy leftism. Really? That's a lot of
Well, it's
people
also a
in this
terrible
country.
general election.
Well,
And he will get rid of wokeism. You know what? I am woke, and I'm proud of it, okay?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So once again, we got to talk about the cackling hens on The View, who are having a conversation about Kamala Harris, who the Biden administration is looking to boost before 2024 because she's a drag down on the Biden-Harris ticket, okay? The only politician that's more disliked than Joe Biden in this country right now is probably Kamala Harris, okay? And because of that, she's not really adding any value to his campaign for president in 2024, his re-election campaign, despite allegedly being black and allegedly having a vagina, because apparently that's supposed to be a boost when you play identity politics, okay? So with that being said, The View is having a conversation about Kamala Harris, and once again, you get the same old tired talking points and lazy arguments from race hustlers like Sunny Hostin, who is claiming that people dislike Kamala because allegedly she's black and allegedly she has a vagina, okay? And this time around, Sarah Haynes is actually going to show her a highlight reel of Kamala and her word salads in response to Sunny's racism accusations. And I just found that this conversation was pretty interesting, and I want to react to it. So without further ado, roll the clip.
Kamala Harris, the Washington Post says the Biden team is trying to boost Vice President Harris's image. But I'm trying to figure out, why do they think it needs boosting? What is it?
Yeah, so I have to pause this right quick because I actually have to address this, right? I have to address this. Kamala Harris's disapproval rating is 51.3%. Her approval rating is 37.8%, which is below Joe Biden's, right? Who's at 41.8% or 41.5%. And Trump's favorability rating is at 42.4. So again, she quite literally is the most unpopular politician in the country, like major national level politician. And Whoopi is asking this stupid question about, well, why would they think that they would need to boost Kamala? Again, I don't understand. Are these people not being prepped before they actually go on this show and ask stupid questions like this? But anyways.
Well, I'll get right in there. So listen, the vice president, when she came on the ticket in 2020, I was thinking game over. She is a rock star. I'd seen her in Senate hearings, super effective, saw that prosecutor side of her come out. And listen, they won. She helped deliver female voters, black voters for the president. It's her time in office that I take a bit of issue with. And having worked for a vice president, you kind of have 2 jobs. Do no harm and try to keep a higher approval rating than your principal. She's not really been able to do either, and I feel like she hasn't broken through on major policy accomplishments. And she will, fairly or unfairly, be the most scrutinized vice president in history because she's running with the oldest president running for president.
And she's also a black woman.
But I think you have to be able to fairly critique the vice president of the United States without just saying it's the color of their skin or the fact she's a woman.
But it is part of it.
What makes you say that?
Well, we're in the United States of America.
But like with someone like me saying it, do you think I could have a legitimate policy objection?
No, it's not you. It's just we're in the United States of America, and black women, and this is just not me saying it. I mean, there have been studies. Black women are considered less articulate. They are considered uglier. They are considered all of these
She's
things
beautiful, I would,
by this country. And it's because of the history, of course, of misogyny and
But it's also
sexism.
just women. I mean, Jerry Ferraro, back in the day, ran for vice president, and they went after her, too.
And that's the misogyny part, but when you mix the
Barbara
misogyny
Bush
and the racism,
I'm sorry.
it's extra. It's a little extra. But I understand why they are boosting her at this point, and they want to boost her, because no Democratic nominee can win the general election without the black vote. I mean, that is just a fact. And when she became the vice presidential candidate, I have a picture of all the women from the Divine Nine strolling to vote
Yeah.
because of her.
Right.
And so I think that she probably, in many respects, won that election for him. And so black voters saved his campaign in 2020. They could also be why he loses it in 2024. And so that makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of doing harm or, you know, I mean, Vice President Pence, no shade, but I mean, I think
A lot of shade. Come on. There's a lot of shade.
There's some shade. I mean,
Go for it. What do you do? What's it?
I'm trying to be a little even-handed, you know, I mean, he was responsible for the administration's COVID response, and we know how well that went.
Well, but real quick
So-
on that, I could off the top of my head list 3 major accomplishments of Vice President Pence. The U.S.-Mexico agreement, our trade policy that was
Who are
negotiated.
you talking about now?
Vice President Pence,
Oh, Pence,
Operation
yeah.
Warp Speed, which love or hate the COVID response, we all have the vaccine now, and that's a good thing. And he did get Republicans' tax reform. I know as Democrats you don't think those are wins, but those are things that he accomplished. I struggle with the Vice President. Why is she not front and center on Dobbs? Why
Well, let
hasn't
me
she
really
given a
quick-
major speech
Well, she
on it?
has.
Yeah, another thing I want to throw in there about Pence as well too, okay? Because when you talk about accomplishments as a VP, Alyssa Farah Griffin actually did her job, which is rare, and defended the conservative point of view. But also he helped usher in Space Force, which is something that Kamala is now kind of, you know, championing. Okay, terribly, by the way, but she's championed that. Again, that was established under President Trump. I think one of President Trump's most underrated accomplishments. Okay, he took the Air Force Space Command and renamed it the United States Space Force and established it as an independent branch in the military, right? Also, on top of that, I don't understand how these people, for as much as they want to talk about January 6th, okay, again, this is not my argument. I'm just saying I don't understand why they don't give Pence more credit for basically refusing to overturn the 2020 election, okay? Because, again, according to them, January 6th was the greatest attack on democracy, and you can argue that Pence came in the way of sending the election back to the states, which is what Trump and a lot of people wanted, right? And again, it blows my mind that they never actually give Pence credit for standing in between that happening, right? It's just funny how that works. Again, this is not my argument. This is just using their own logic, okay? But anyways, now comes the part where Sarah Haynes is going to play a highlight clip of Kamala Harris giving a word salad because Sunny Hostin is basically claiming that you can't dislike Kamala unless you are racist, okay? The only reason that people dislike Kamala is because of her skin color and because she allegedly has a vagina. I mean, it is truly an offensive thing to say. So I guess you got to show the highlight clip to Sunny, letting her know that, hey, you know, when people listen to Kamala Harris, she sounds like an idiot.
As someone who also has a hard time listening to her do speeches because she has this tendency, they call it the word salad, but where she starts to almost, I don't know if she's going off script and ad-libbing or improving, and if that's the case, she needs to stay on script. If it's her speechwriter, they need to change the speechwriter, because when you're 2 years in, they need to protect her more.
Yeah, the clip.
Well, I don't need to go to, I was using that clip to show it, and I think everyone's seen it. When she starts to, well, we'll just show the clip then. It's
The significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
During Women's History Month, we celebrate and we honor the women who made history throughout history.
She's reading
so
the
it's
prompter.
just well, and
then
if she's
get
reading
these speechwriters.
prompter, if she's reading a prompter, they need to immediately fix that. You are the Vice President of the United States. The administration and the president are responsible for protecting her.
Well, I would add that as a lawyer, you're generally told when you're speaking that you speak in threes, because that's what people remember. So if you're going to talk about a car, you talk about the car, the red car, the fast red car. So I think what you just
But you don't
saw
use the definition in the word in the
You do.
definition.
So I think a part of that is that.
Yeah, so again, I love how she quickly tries to excuse Kamala Harris's poor communication skills by saying that, well, that's a speechwriter and that's just lawyer speak, right? That's how lawyers speak. Well, I'm like, okay, well, she's not talking to people in a courtroom. She's talking to the American people, okay? And the fact that this is a written speech does not excuse the fact that it's not a good speech and that it comes off as weird, okay? And also, she has to take some responsibility for that, right? Like, you have to be self-aware enough to know, okay, my speeches sound weird. I'm getting embarrassed here, okay? People are basically saying that I sound like an idiot. Let me change my speechwriter. Right? Let me talk differently. Okay, I mean, she does. We know she has the ability to do so, depending on where she goes, okay? Because she has different accents and cadences. I'm just saying, that's still on her, okay? It's still on her. Most of these politicians were lawyers, and there's no other politician that talks the way that Kamala Harris does, okay? There's no other politician that is as weird as she is, okay? I'm just saying, maybe that's just who she is. Maybe she's just kooky like that, but I'm just saying. Furthermore, Kamala, she hasn't just sounded weird or had poor communication skills when reading speeches. She also has messed up and just said weird stuff when being asked questions in general. Like, for example, at one point she thought that Ukraine was a part of NATO. And then also she explained what's going on between Russia and Ukraine to a black audience like they're kindergartners. Take a look.
So I will say what I know we all say, and I will say over and over again. The United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people in defense of the NATO alliance.
If you're watching any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Yeah, so it's not even just the word salads. It's just anytime she really answers questions, she's just awkward. She laughs out of place. She's just not a very likable person, okay? I'm just keeping it 100, okay? And I guess we can debate about what the role of a vice president is supposed to be. Sometimes, again, you have a shadow president like a Dick Cheney, and then other times you have, you know, vice presidents that are more of cheerleaders for the administration rather than policymakers or people that are actually calling the shots, okay? Again, that role of VP throughout history, it just depends on who's in office and their role. And if Kamala's role is to be a cheerleader, she's failed because she is not representing the Biden administration in a very positive way. And if her role is to be a policymaker, then she's also failed at that because she has not accomplished anything significant in regards to policy. Everything that Biden has put her on, like the border, she failed. On so-called voting rights, which again is a fraud, she's failed. On Roe v. Wade, right, the Dobbs decision, she's failed. She's failed on all those things. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what has she actually accomplished. She hasn't accomplished anything. But again, you can't have these conversations with Sunny Hostin because you can't analyze anything without using the lens of race. Like, for example, when in this same show, she goes on this rampage against white women because she believes that they vote in line with the patriarchy and their husbands. Take a look.
I have a similar theory, and it's borne out when you look at the studies and when you read books like it's a book that came out a long time ago about she owned property as well, meaning white women owned slaves as well. I think that white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well, and they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing, how their husbands are voting. I think with white female Republicans, you have a Republican Party that is taking away your health right to decide for yourself. You have all of these things.
There's an actual quote in this article, one of the people interviewed, who says, I think Trump's an idiot. I hate him as a person. Jeez. But I'm concerned about the economy. I can barely afford to live. I went to college. I have a degree. No, but I'm telling you, my family are these people where if your 401k went down by 25% when Biden came into office, money sometimes comes first.
And there are 240 million eligible voters in this country. And I think we heard at this table people who admitted to only voting for wanting a pro-life Supreme Court justice. That's all they went to the booths with. You could do anything, and all they cared about was that thing. I don't presume to know what keeps people up at night. I don't think groups are monolithic. I don't think every woman, every black person, every Hispanic, every, name any group, vote the same. I think we're a complicated nation with a lot of differences, which makes this country really magical, and I wouldn't project what keeps me up at night on anyone else.
But there are studies that support these things.
Well, here's the thing, I'm stopping everyone.
All right.
We have to go.
We have to.
But there's studies that support everything that I say. Well, again, you can find a study to support anything that anybody says, right? Again, I love how these people, liberals tend to do this a lot. They try to say, well, the studies are saying X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, what studies? How many studies, right? Again, is it a meta-analysis or just a study, right? Or just a few studies? Because if you want to cite a meta-analysis, okay, that is probably the strongest way that you can support your point. But if you're trying to say that, well, there are studies that back up what I say, okay, well, there's studies that back up anything, right, that anybody says. Doesn't mean anything. But again, once again, you see in that conversation, Sunny Hostin just does not have the ability to analyze anything without using the lenses of racism or sexism, okay? She's trying to accuse white women of voting in line with their husbands, right? Because they're trying to protect the patriarchy, which I don't see as a bad thing, right? I think that's actually a great thing, okay? I'm envious of the white man being able to keep his woman in line when it comes to voting, because black people, we do tend to vote in a monolithic way, right? I mean, black folks vote for Democrats in a 90+% clip, okay? Black women like 95, 96%, right? So, I mean, what has that done in terms of good for black folks, right? It hasn't done much good for black folks. So again, I'm just saying, maybe it's a good thing if white women do in fact vote in line with what their husbands want, right? I think that's kind of how it should be, right? I think that for the most part, women should have their husband's best interest when they do anything, period. But again, the cackling hands on the view, the liberal progressive women on the view, they see that as inherently a bad thing when that's not inherently a bad thing, right? It's not inherently a bad thing. But again, it's just amazing to me how Sunny does not see how people can dislike politicians like Kamala Harris without calling it racism, right? And again, I think that's kind of why you haven't seen Kamala Harris really change up much, or you've seen her approval rating go up. It hasn't gone up because she has no ability to actually self-reflect. She probably thinks the same thing. Well, they just don't like me because I have a vagina and because of my skin color, right? But maybe, just maybe, there's something else about her that people just don't like, okay? Maybe, again, it's just the way she talks, the way she carries herself. She hasn't accomplished anything. She's been an utter disaster when it comes to the border. I mean, she's completely checked out on that, right? The one thing that she is in charge of, she is the border czar. She's completely checked out on that, right? She just refuses while our country is being invaded. And then people like Sunny Hostin wonder why people don't approve of her, right? She's been a disaster across the board. Even when she was a Democrat candidate for president, the Democrats didn't like her, right? They did not want to vote for her. She dropped out before a vote was cast because that's how unlikable she was. So again, it's just amazing to hear these conversations because it just seems to me that Sunny Hostin is she's just a racist, right? That's just what she is. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.